Do you know how to administer CPR?
Yes, I do, unfortunately. I hear the EMS coming.
Multiple calls to 911, an alleged 12 reports of possible child abuse to the Department of Child Safety by school personnel, and another 5 by police, countless injuries, and years of apparent abuse that a doctor called torture. A 10-year-old girl is dead out in Arizona at the end of July, and some family members say there is plenty of blame to go around. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We have an absolutely heartbreaking story out of Arizona that we want to talk about. It's about a 10-year-old girl named Rebekah Baptiste. This little girl, whose life, prosecutors say, was essentially a living hell. But now, an Arizona couple is facing first-degree murder charges after Rebekah was found unresponsive near a highway intersection last month, later dying from her injuries. Authorities arrested the girl's father, 32-year-old Richard Baptiste, and his 29-year-old girlfriend, Anicia Woods, in connection with this little girl's death. And the allegations against these two are horrifying. July 27th, Woods called 911 telling dispatchers that Rebekah wasn't breathing. And that call paints a chilling picture of what happened.
Location of your emergency?
Hey, Rose?
What's the location of your emergency?
We're on I-80 headed towards Goldberg. It's my daughter. She's with us. We live out in the desert, and we're hauling ass to Goldberg to the EMS station.
Now, investigators say that Rebekah had been living in a remote home with her father and his girlfriend, and had apparently ran away multiple times.
She ran away for the third time in a week in the desert, and when the neighbor found her in the wash, she was unresponsive completely. And by the time she got back to the house, she was barely breathing, so I'm breathing for her now. She's unresponsive, unconscious, and unable to breathe for herself.
Is she breathing?
I'm breathing for her.
What do you mean?
I am putting my mouth around hers and breathing the air in her lungs. Yes.
The dispatcher urges Woods to pull over and wait for EMS.
I need you to pull over so that I can page him out to you and we can start CPR.
Would it be easier if is it going to be faster if we just keep going? Because we're almost to Goldberg.
I understand that. I need you to pull over so I can have EMS meet you.
And when asked if she knew CPR, Woods replied,
Have you got her to the flat ground, solid ground?
Yeah, she's in the car.
Okay, I need you to put her on the ground.
On the rocks?
I need her on a flat ground so that you can administer CPR. Do you know how to administer CPR?
Yes, I do, unfortunately.
Are you wanting to start CPR or are you waiting for EMS?
I'm waiting for them because I'm trying to get her breath. I'm not doing this on the block.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since they're there.
What? She ran away and they found her in the wash, and she's been unresponsive.
And the call ends with sirens in the background. And although that 911 call was made by the woman later identified as Anicia Woods, police say she was not Rebekah's biological mother. She'd just been dating Rebekah's father, Richard Baptiste. And according to the Apache County Sheriff's Office, and as reported by AZ Family, ABC 15, 12 News, Holbrook police found the gravely injured 10-year-old at the intersection of two highways on July 27th. She was rushed to a nearby medical facility, but died from her injuries 3 days later on July 30th. And during a recent court hearing, prosecutors shared just absolutely harrowing details from medical personnel who examined Rebekah. Reports from AZ Family and ABC 15 revealed that she showed signs of severe dehydration, malnourishment, was missing toenails, was covered in injuries that prosecutors contend were the result of physical abuse, sexual abuse, prolonged torture. And now, a newly released police report offers an even closer look at what prosecutors allege happened to Rebekah. But be warned, the details only grow more disturbing. Now, Law&Crime, we obtained a comprehensive 33-page incident report from the Navajo County Sheriff's Office, which provides disturbing accounts of law enforcement's interactions with Richard Baptiste and Anicia Woods, along with graphic documentation of this little girl's purported injuries, wounds that prosecutors say were caused by sustained abuse. Now, before I go any further, I want to bring on a special guest to help me break all this down, somebody who has expertise in these kinds of cases, former criminal prosecutor and municipal inspector Dan Schorr. Dan, good to see you. By the way, this is a big day for you. This is your new book releases, right? Open Bar comes out today. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So my novel's called Open Bar. It's right here, and it's about a different kind of abuse of youthful individuals. It's about sexual abuse in a college softball program and the behind the scenes events that occur when you investigate those cases. It's based on my experience as a sex crimes prosecutor and an investigator of sexual misconduct. So people can find that online at Amazon or anywhere else, or they could find me on Substack to learn more information about it.
This is such a disheartening story. It is not an easy one to cover, but it is an important one to bring to you nonetheless. And the reason we can do that is because of the amazing support that we get from our sponsors like Upside. Now, Upside is great. It is a free app that gets you cash back when you buy daily essentials. So I pump my gas, I can use Upside. I go out to lunch, I can use Upside. Maybe get something at a convenience store, I can use Upside. And why not get cash back when I do all these things, right? This is real, actual cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you transfer right into your bank account. So once you have the free Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card. You follow the steps on the app, you get paid. So to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen, and make sure to use our promo code Sidebar because you get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. So like I said, you have the expertise, unfortunately, to handle a case like this, and let's get into it. So I want to break down what's in this report. Now, the first official law enforcement report was generated on the night of July 27th when responders found Rebekah unresponsive. And as I mentioned, she would succumb to her injuries 3 days later while hospitalized in Phoenix. During interviews with Navajo County Sheriff's deputies that were conducted in Holbrook, Richard Baptiste disclosed that the family had relocated approximately 3 weeks earlier to Concho. That's a remote community about 50 miles southeast of Holbrook within Apache County. And they had been living in a settlement known as a yurt. It's a semi-permanent tent-like structure that didn't have electricity or running water. But Richard explained their move from Phoenix followed the death of his great uncle, leaving only Richard and his father responsible for this property. And he described separating from the children's biological mother about 9 years prior due to her alleged substance abuse issues. During questioning, investigators pressed Baptiste about his past and whether there had been any prior warnings about the children's safety. In his response, Richard also disclosed a history of involvement with the Department of Child Safety due to allegations of abuse, neglect, and possible sexual abuse. Richard advised each claim was unsubstantiated. He mentioned that the children had been in therapy and that Rebekah had previously tried to run away multiple times in Phoenix. Baptiste also gave investigators his account of the day that Rebekah ran away, describing what he says happened in the hours before she was found. The report reads, Richard confirmed that the family woke up around 7 or 8 a.m. but didn't get up until 9 or 10 a.m. After breakfast, the children went off to play and stood under a tree. Richard started taking care of things around the property and tried to unpack and change a flat tire. At some point, Richard realized that Rebekah was gone and he began searching for her. Richard and his partner Anicia searched for about an hour before Rebekah was found and brought back by an unknown male neighbor. Let's stop right there. What are you taking away from this right now, Dan?
Well, I, in addition to prosecuting sex crimes, I also prosecuted homicide cases in New York City as an assistant DA. And unfortunately, there are cases like this where there's rampant child abuse. One thing that is really shocking here is the extent of the injuries. According to the medical exam that was done on the body, according to the police report, there was bruising on the face, the arms, the legs, the pelvic area, vaginal bruising, severe dehydration. There was a missing toenail. So this is not something that comes quickly. If someone falls or gets hurt, they don't just sustain bruising like that and dehydration like that. So this shows all the signs of rampant long-term abuse. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. There's also a lot of reports from other people that they called in suspected abuse. So I'm sure we'll get to that. But to me, there are so many signs here that this was an ongoing pattern of abuse, which is just heartbreaking that someone would experience that, especially a 10-year-old child.
Yet when it came time to address Rebekah's injuries, documented, by the way, in graphic photos, Baptiste first claimed they were the result of her falling into a wash or tripping over barbed wire while running away. But when an experienced investigator reviewed the images, his reaction was one of horror. The report reads, I have investigated many deaths, car accidents, homicides, blunt force trauma-related deaths, and others. I have investigated countless assaults, fights, domestic violence incidents, and other incidents of child abuse. I had never seen anything like the photos of Rebekah and her injuries. From head to toe, I saw injuries on Rebekah's body. I could see redness on the scalp and no roots to her hair. I saw uniform whipping marks on her side, which wrapped around to her back. I saw a whipping mark that looked as if it possibly was the same level as the others, but stopped at her elbow, taking flesh off of her elbow. I saw these injuries to be in different stages of bruising and bleeding healing. I saw unimaginable bruising around Rebekah's pelvic, abdomen, and leg area, where Rebekah suffered extreme injuries. I saw injuries on Rebekah's shoulders, arms, and legs, and toes, where one of her toenails was missing. You know, Dan, we talk about how children are an interesting kind of victim here, in that, yes, they tumble around. They may have more injuries than an adult, right? Because they can tussle around, they play, they fall. This is different, right? This goes over the line. This is something that a seasoned investigator would say, the degree of the injuries, the state of the injuries, that tells a different story.
I would say even if you're not a seasoned investigator, this would tell you that this is rampant, long-term, horrendous child abuse, because there are so many injuries to so many parts of the body. Yes, children fall, children play, they get bruising. Children always have bruises on their legs or their arms from just playing around, but not like this, not all over the body, not in so many places, not with such an extent of damage to her body that it can only be caused by intentional actions by another individual, based on my experience. And I don't think you even need much experience to be able to see the extent of the horrific injuries here and reach that conclusion.
And when confronted with those images, Baptiste at first claimed he didn't know where many of the injuries had come from, but then ultimately allegedly admitted that most of the bruising was caused by what he called excessive force at his own hands. The report reads, Richard claimed to not know where all of the injuries came from on her body. However, the majority of the bruising Richard claimed was from excessive force caused by himself. I showed another photo and asked Richard how he could have done this to his daughter. Richard replied, it wasn't supposed to do that. I pointed to many different bruises on the front of Rebekah's pelvic area and asked where all of the bruises were from. Richard claimed they were from the belt. The detective then pressed further, asking what he had to say for himself. Quote, Richard kept his eyes squinted but maintained nearly no emotion. I asked Richard what he had to say about himself at this time. Richard told me he didn't deserve to be a dad. I provided an out for Richard, claiming maybe he was drunk or lost his temper. Instead, Richard shook his head no and stated, I used excessive force. I asked Richard how his girlfriend could just sit by and watch. Richard replied, I don't even know how I could do that. And in reference to the photos of the injuries, Richard eventually stated, I used excessive force. I'm not denying that. I offered to go through these injuries one by one, but Richard asked if that was necessary and stated an admission of, I used the belt and I used excessive force in reference to the injuries. Richard also admitted, I came down with force with those whoopings. Now, obviously from a defense perspective, Dan, they would love to get that alleged confession out and make sure our jury never hears it. But if they can't do that, that's pretty damning.
Absolutely. And he's admitted to causing injuries. He hasn't admitted to intending to kill her. And maybe he didn't intend to kill her, but it is certainly the direct result of someone causing extensive injuries throughout her body. And it's horrific what the father, if he did what he said he did, and it's certainly corroborated by these injuries, if he did this, it's horrific. But what is even an additional layer of heartbreak is how the system failed this 10-year-old girl, because we know there are people, unfortunately, in this world who are abusive to children, but we're supposed to have a system that detects that, sees warning signs, reports it so children can be removed from a home when there's signs of abuse. And I know that's being looked at here, but clearly other people saw warning signs, and that didn't lead to helping her. That didn't lead to saving her. And the system clearly failed this girl in a huge way, even beyond just her father being responsible for her death, if all the facts that we have are accurate. And we have no reason to believe they're not.
And at this point, Rebekah, by the way, was still alive. She was fighting for her life in a hospital bed. But when detectives confronted Richard with the possible legal consequences if she died, the report says he showed, quote, minimal concern about losing his daughter or facing charges. The investigation also revealed that Richard's prior involvement with the Arizona Department of Child Safety was extensive. Allegations of abuse, neglect, possible sexual abuse, all of which he dismissed as unfounded. He acknowledged his children had attended therapy, admitted Rebekah had tried to run away multiple times while they lived in Phoenix, but despite Richard's denial that he ever abused Rebekah, police say she had tried to run away before, not once, not twice, but multiple times. That history became clear when investigators spoke with his girlfriend, Anicia Woods. Woods described 3 separate runaway attempts in Concho, plus another incident before the move. In Phoenix, she said Rebekah jumped out of an open window before being caught. So the first incident in Concho occurred about a week after they moved in, apparently, with a second incident reportedly happening just 3 days later. According to the report, Woods said, as it pertained to that second incident, she had been hiding up in a tree for someone to come up so she can go be with them. She knew that people were going to come look for her, so she was picking and choosing which adult she was going to go and say, "Can I live with you?" Now Anicia was asked about her thoughts on the consequences for someone who seriously injured a 10-year-old girl, and her response, police say, was notably unemotional. The report reads, "I specifically asked Anicia what she thought should happen to someone who seriously injured a 10-year-old girl. She had an unemotional response and just simply said that she didn't know, but maybe some jail time." Dan, let's stop there. First of all, this is their perception of her emotions. Could be accurate, could be not. The defense might fight back about that. The allegations of running away, is that something common you've seen?
Not at this age. So I would say it's common among teenagers who are abused, that they have the wherewithal to realize they need to get away, and they usually have the ability to try to escape it all. But for someone who's only 10, that is a huge leap to actually try to run away multiple times. And that shows that she was aware of the need to escape in a way that you don't see very often as someone that young. So I think that's even more corroboration and there's plenty of other corroborations. I don't think this is even necessary to build a case, but this is even more corroboration that there was severe ongoing abuse, that someone that young would decide, I need to get away. I need to run away. Because as scary as it is for a teenager to run away, it's even scarier for a 10-year-old to be on their own, just trying to get away from their home. But that showed that was her last resort, because she recognized that she was in a horrific situation and her life was in danger. And again, not only did her father and his girlfriend fail her, but the whole system failed her. And it's heartbreaking.
And despite claiming experience as a certified nursing assistant out in California, Woods insisted that Rebekah didn't need medical attention for her severe injuries, believing the girl would, quote, be fine. However, medical staff diagnosed Rebekah with catastrophic brain damage caused by bleeding and swelling. There was no detectable brain activity, and she was placed on life support until her death on July 30th. So now these two, Woods and Richard, now face murder and child abuse charges connected to Rebekah's death. And another critical aspect of this case involves the role of the Department of Child Safety, DCS. So according to 12 News Arizona, the department was contacted multiple times before the tragic death of Rebekah. The Phoenix Police Department confirmed that they made 5 separate reports to DCS concerning Rebekah and her siblings prior to her death. Police records spanning from August 18 through April 2025 show that Phoenix PD responded to several incidents involving the Baptiste children, although none actually led to criminal charges. In August 2018, officers conducted a welfare check. They notified DCS. December 2023, another welfare check prompted police and detectives to contact the department again. By February 2024, police responded to an accidental injury report and alerted DCS. November 2024, investigators reported a child abuse and neglect allegation. November 2024, investigators reported a child abuse and neglect allegation. April 2025, officers documented a case involving a minor injury to a child, after which detectives contacted DCS once more. And the incident, by the way, in April of 2025, drew particular attention from Empower College Prep. This is Rebekah's former school. Executive Director Brian Holman revealed that their school resource officer observed visible injuries during a home visit following Rebekah's extended absence. In an emotional interview with 12 News, Empower administrators presented documentation showing they made 12 separate reports to DCS concerning Rebekah and her siblings. Although that figure seems to conflict with DCS's acknowledgement of only 5 school-initiated contacts, with just 1 meeting investigation criteria. But in response to mounting criticism, the Arizona Department of Child Safety addressed their statutory limitations, expressed sorrow over Rebekah Baptiste's death, saying in a statement, "It is with a heavy heart that we acknowledge the death of Rebekah Baptiste, a child who is known to the department. Anytime a child in our community is harmed, it deeply affects us all, especially when we know the family. Our dedicated staff work tirelessly to ensure the safety of all children, but tragically, those who intend to harm children can sometimes evade even the most robust systems designed to protect them." In response to this incident, the department is actively collaborating with law enforcement in a joint investigation to ensure that the people responsible for this heinous act are brought to justice. Now, before we move forward with their response, Dan, what do you take away from their response? What do you take away from the allegations that there were multiple reported incidents in the past?
Right. And as you said, there was a dispute about how many times there were reports, but there's no doubt there were reports. So before anyone gets to who's at fault, we can say 100% sure the system failed her. The system failed this girl. People saw signs of abuse. There were reports of the abuse. It went to the right place, and she was allowed to stay in that home, experience more abuse, and she was killed as a result. So the system failed her, and there needs to be an independent look into what was reported, what was the response to those reports, not just to blame people, but also to make sure that in the future, things are handled differently, because whatever the system is right now that's working over there in DCS, it did not help this girl. And we need to make sure that future reports lead to more meaningful interactions by law enforcement or DCS to hopefully protect other children.
Well, the Department of Child Safety, they sought to clarify some public misconceptions that they see about their involvement in this case, addressing specific reports that were made by Empower School and others. They went on to say the department would like to correct some information made public by other sources related to the death of Rebekah Baptiste. According to department records, Empower School called the hotline 5 times in the past year, and 1 time the allegation met statutory report criteria. The other 4 times, the department was not able to investigate the allegations because they did not meet the statutory threshold for abuse or neglect. We do not have any records that a relative called the hotline after 2019 to allege abuse or neglect of Rebekah or her siblings. Now, the Department of Child Safety also emphasized their commitment to protecting children while explaining the limits of what they can do, their authority, saying we take every call to our hotline seriously, but we only have the authority to initiate an investigation if the call meets statutory report criteria. Rebekah deserved love, safety, and a chance to thrive. There are no words that will make sense of the pain she endured or her life that was tragically cut short. Her loss is a sorrow that we carry deeply, a reminder of the work we must never stop doing. We know this loss is felt most deeply by her school community that saw Rebekah most often. In honoring her memory, the department will strive to educate our schools to better understand what meets report criteria so that when they do make a call to the hotline, we can take appropriate action. And DCS outlined the specific criteria that determine whether a report meets the threshold for investigation. Per their statement, according to Arizona Revised Statutes 8-455, a communication qualifies as a report when the source alleges that a parent's conduct has either harmed a child or placed them at substantial risk of harm. Now, notably, the legislature revised this language in 2022, changing the standard from unreasonable risk of harm to substantial risk of harm. So general complaints about poor parenting, they're not going to meet the criteria for a report. And if a call doesn't meet these standards, it's categorized separately, reviewed again by a unit supervisor to ensure there's no concerns that are overlooked. And when a report moves forward to investigation, specific legal requirements govern the removal of children from the home. State law mandates the use of a safety assessment model, which can only be altered through the legislature. And under this model, children have to be found to be in present or impending danger with no other viable solution besides removal. The investigation process requires interviews with alleged victims, perpetrators, other household members. Now, neither the department nor law enforcement has the authority to compel participation, and that can limit the ability to gather sufficient evidence to justify removal in court. But the department's safety analysis review team said they would conduct a thorough review of this case to identify any systemic barriers that may have influenced what happened here. The department also pledged to maintain transparency, share information about their involvement with the family as they are legally allowed to do so. So Dan, I mean, real quick before we wrap things up, there are limitations here.
Right, but if there are limitations, those limitations have to change. So whether that's changing statutory criteria, whether that's changing internal procedures at Department of Child Safety, whatever needs to be changed, we have to start with the basic fact that the system failed this girl, that there were signs of abuse, there was reporting of abuse, she remained in the home, and she was killed. So something needs to change. It can't go forward with the same criteria, the same processes that were in place here because they were not meaningful for this girl.
Now, we mentioned earlier that Richard Baptiste made his first court appearance in Apache County along with Anicia Woods, and after initially being held without bond, a judge set $1 million bonds for both defendants this past week. They face first-degree murder, child abuse charges. Preliminary hearing is scheduled for September 4th out in Apache County. Dan Schorr, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for covering this important story, and it's always good to talk with you.
All right, so quick programming alert before we wrap things up. I'm actually going to be hosting Cuomo tonight on News Nation, 8 p.m. Eastern. One of the things we're going to be doing is taking your calls about any of the true crime cases that we've covered here on Sidebar. I'm going to post it on social media with the number. You can check it out. I'll see you tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, Cuomo on News Nation. All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.